The broker is the most important person as part of your team.
I wouldn't be where I am now if I hadn't have been the broker.
A good broker should sit down with you and go, okay, cool, what's your goal?
It might be a bit of a harsh subject, but it's one we're approaching with Simon Liu, founder of Housefinder and property investor worth over $30 million, tells us why it's so important to know when to bin your broker, because having the right broker is arguably the most important member on the team.
That's why a good broker is really important. That doesn't work if your goal is to build a portfolio of properties. You can't buy it. It's a waste of everyone's time.
How well painted did this picture need to be?
It can't be super well painted, right? Because things change. The question you can ask is,
whether you're new at property investing or at 1 or 2 rentals and wanting to get to 2 or 3, having the right broker on your team is an absolute game changer. My name's Todd Sloan. This is the Pizza and Property Podcast, and you're listening to my chat with Simon Liu about when it's time to bin your broker and assemble the winning team. Simon Liu.
Todd,
is it time to bin a broker today?
I wouldn't say bin them. You might just want to maybe not talk to them, or maybe go to an alternative or something like that.
It's a bit of a rough title.
Yeah, it is.
And before anyone accuses me of clickbait with this, I think the most important part of the takeaway I want you to get from this personally, and I know Simon's got his views on this too, but is really why this is so important. So bin your broker, yeah, it's harsh, but why is it really important to have a broker on your side that actually really is conducive to growth? So can we actually just open this up from your point of view, first of all, Simon?
Brokers are a dime a dozen. They're everywhere, right? And most brokers, you approach them, they tell them your information and show them some pay slips and all that kind of stuff, and they're going to get you a loan for your next house, right? And a lot of them are going to sell you on things like interest rates and getting the lowest rates or the best cash back offers or whatever. That doesn't work if your goal is to build a portfolio of properties. A good broker should sit down with you and go, okay, cool, what's your goal, right? What do you want to achieve with property long term? And you might go, oh, I want 100K passive income, and for that to happen, I need to buy 10 properties so I can sell down a few of them and then pay off a few of them. And I want to get to 10 properties in, say, 10 years. That's one a year, that kind of thing. So how do I consistently buy one property a year? And a good broker will, at the best of the ability of his or her ability at the time as well, map out your next few purchases. And the map will be dependent on which banks are most favorable to use at the time, because that changes basically every day. That's why a good broker is really important. They'll help you sort of think about which bank to use. It's not about interest rates. It's not about anything else, but the main driver is to maximize your borrowing power.
So if I can kind of summarize that, then an average broker, let's say, is someone that can write you a loan.
Yep.
A broker that's going to help you really grow is someone that actually looks at the whole picture, not just the loan now, but the maybe loan 2, 3, and 4 down the track.
Correct, yeah. And they'll also look at the type of property you're buying. So, in my world, we focus on getting bargains and properties that you can pull equity out of really quickly. So we would typically recommend a broker that would think about that and go, okay, cool. If your plan is to buy this house for $500,000 and in 6 months' time you need to pull out, 50, 100K equity, whatever it is, there are some banks that are a little bit more conducive to that process, just based on how they assess you. You might need to put down a certain deposit, maybe avoiding LMI, mortgage insurance will help in that process as well. So it just gets a little bit more deeper. And I find the brokers that have that ability to do that effectively are the ones that have built a large portfolio of properties themselves, right? So they've kind of been through the challenges.
Talk to me a little bit more about refining the goals, because I want to almost turn this into a line of questions, because I've got a young lad at the moment that I'm actually helping buy his first property.
Yep.
And put him in touch with a broker, and he's like, oh, Todd, they just said I need more money, and that was pretty much the conversation. I'm like, what questions did you ask? He's like, what do you mean? I just asked how much money can I borrow? I'm like, no, there's more questions than that.
Yeah.
Because if you start talking like you're someone that just wants to buy a property, they're going to treat you like someone that's just going to buy a property, not build a portfolio. So if we're talking goals and the questions to really ask a broker to talk through those goals and make sure you're on the right page, how would you frame that up?
I think it's actually down to the broker. Okay. Like the broker should be like, what is your goal? I don't think it's up to the clients.
So it should be getting asked.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So yeah, that initial conversation you can I think you can pick up pretty quickly whether they're going to be helping you assist in that long-term journey or not, just by simply going, hey, what do you look to achieve long-term?
Okay. And then really getting clear on the goal. Is the goal just, okay, I want 100K passive, I want like to buy the types of properties? Like how well painted did this picture need to be?
It can't be super well painted, right? Because things change. The housing markets change, economy, interest rates, your personal situation. You might earn more money and might earn less money over the years. I think just find the intention, right? If you can pick it up pretty easily, right? If you just talk to the broker and they kind of talk to you about, okay, investments and how to grow the portfolio, how do you get to your retirement goals, that kind of thing. I think that's a good starting point. I think very few brokers actually do that.
Okay, so straight away, one of the things that I'm really hearing then, as far as the episode title, When to Pin Your Broker, is if they're not asking you any of these questions at all, that's already red flag number one, really.
Yes, correct.
Okay. Now, if you're having a plan put together, don't put together a plan that is like so absolutely 100 point meticulous, because your life is not going to be this like rigid thing that just continues exactly as it is.
Correct. Yeah. Okay. And look, I mean, just on that point as well, I think it goes not just with your broker, but with who you work with. Maybe even if you're working with a buyer's agent, if they come up with like a 5-year plan, I hear this a lot nowadays. It's a marketing tool, because the world was different 12 months ago as of today, let alone in the next 5 years. You kind of almost set yourself up for disappointment, because if you don't get to that 5-year goal, you might be thinking, oh, I'm not progressing as well as I should be. So it's kind of like you're kind of demotivating yourself, if that makes sense.
So is your sort of planning then more like just 12 months, 24 months? How long are you looking ahead?
I'm always only looking, like for me personally, I'm always looking at maybe the next 12 months max, but really my next property. That's always been my focus, right? I don't really put a time frame around it, because I remember when I was buying my first bunch of properties, some years I bought 1, some years I bought 3, some years I bought 0, depending on whether I can borrow or not, depending on interest rates, depending on my cash flow position, depending on whether I was employed or not. So you have to be fluid. And the saying goes, make hay while the sun shines. So if you're in a position where you can borrow and buy lots of properties, do as much as you can, because you might not get that opportunity next year for whatever reason that you don't know at the end of the day.
Okay, so it's like if your plan is to buy one property a year over 5 years, but then you might buy one property in year 1, another property in year 2, and then nothing for a few years, and then 3 all of a sudden in the last. Okay,
absolutely.
I get you.
So that's why I always say, look, the long-term goal is, let's say 100K passive, and you need to buy, like I said, 10 properties to get there. Then that's 1 a year. It's not 1 a year on the dot every single year. Some years you have to take a breather. Some years you might buy a few. So be malleable.
Okay. So you've got a plan, but it's something that's got flexibility to it.
Correct, yes.
Now, as far as the broker and your plan are concerned, what kind of a red flag should someone be looking for to go, I don't think I'm in the right hands right now, when they're talking about their plan?
I think just coming back to the point where, they're not really talking to you about investment goals, I think you can pick it up pretty quickly. Like usually what happens is with some of the people that we work with, they maybe get to 3 or 4 properties, and their broker is like, aren't making any sort of suggestions on how to get their 5th or 6th, right? And then I might introduce one of the brokers we work with, and suddenly they're able to service for another 2 properties by maybe working with a different lender, or maybe it's buying in certain structures. I know nowadays at the moment, a lot of people are buying trusts, and that can help with their serviceability. But really the goal is to get more money from the banks, right? It's got nothing to do with interest rates. Even the loans I have now, I'm paying significantly higher than what I could be getting if my focus was just getting absolute lowest interest rates. But
your focus is expansion.
Yeah, because I'm always like, what's a 1% difference on a $500,000 loan?
It's $5,000.
Yeah. But if you buy the right property, you might make 100, 200 grand in that same year.
So you're just looking at this is a cost of
doing business, 100%. So don't get focused on interest rates. If you're buying a house to live in, obviously you need to look at your costs. But as investments, I think it's all about how you're going to get more houses to make more money.
So what I'm really hearing there is you're sitting down with a broker. Let's say you're like, yeah, cool. They've asked me what my goal is. And they're like, yeah, okay, we can start putting a plan together. But if they just start talking about, hey, if you go to XYZ Bank, they're doing a $3,000 cash back at the moment. Plus they can get you this interest rate, blah, blah, blah. It's like, to me, that's not completely red flagged, but that's a bit of maybe they're not actually conducive to growth.
Yeah. Like the cash back and stuff would be a bonus,
Yeah.
Oh, and by the way, you're going to get $3,000 back.
Details on policy. This is a big one. I feel that rates, quite often when I'm speaking to people, are the thing that they put in the front seat. And then policy, I don't even know if policy is in the back seat. It's probably not even in the boot, but it needs to be in the front seat because it's one of those things that can be the difference between getting an entire new property and just like complete zeros. How is someone talking about a broker around policy? Because this gets quite technical. It's like you said before, it's changing literally every day. What questions should they be getting asked?
I don't think I don't think brokers talk about policy a lot, but they know about the policies, right? So they're always in touch with, certain banks, what they're doing at that particular point in time. Maybe a bank has come up with a way to assess someone differently, depending on what situation they have. If they were PAYG or if they're a contractor or if they run their own business, this and that.
That's what I hear all the time. It's like, all of these banks, they need 2 years financials. However, this one used to be in that pool, but now they've actually recently changed their policy. And now they only need 12 months, 6 months, letter from the account, whatever it is.
So I think maybe the question you can ask is, hey, broker, why would you be recommending this bank? And they'll tell you. They'll go, okay, I'm recommending this bank because they've just had a policy change and you're going to be able to get your equity out really quickly because of that. And I think those are signs that, okay, cool, this guy's legit. I can grow the portfolio with him. The broker is the most important person as part of your team.
Can you say that again?
The broker is the most important person as part of your team.
I didn't mean to make it as awkward as I did. It is just...
you okay?
No.
Got your headphones on? Is it broken or something?
It's just so important. And I want to emphasize it because... Like Bianca and I were actually talking about this episode just before today. And I said, the reason I think this one is so important is because if I stayed with the first broker that I used, great. And we actually became friends. It was so hard to leave because great dude.
Yeah.
But I remember we were at rental number 3 and he's like, sorry, man, I can get you, I think it was $300,000, but he's just like, can't really do anything. I went to another broker and they're like, I can get you $950.
Yeah.
And it's like, what?
Yeah.
Like I wouldn't be where I am now if I hadn't have been the broker.
Yeah. Property is a game of leverage. You can only buy a house if you can borrow. That's the bottom line. So even if I find the most amazing property deal, you're going to get $200,000 immediate equity. If you can't buy it, it's a waste of everyone's time. So your broker is the very first step, and they're the ones that's going to hopefully allow you to buy as many as you can, and start with that.
No, I'm not going to ask you to repeat it again.
I wouldn't be able to.
All right, man. I reckon we've covered this off. Basically, you need to be able to talk to them about the goals, your goals. Don't get so specific in your goal that it's like something that if one of them pieces falls apart, the whole thing falls apart. But make sure you do have direction.
Absolutely. Making
sure that they're conducive to that plan. They can go, okay, cool, I can see where you're going with this. You're going to need this kind of yield. You're going to need this kind of equity growth. You can start talking to them along the right lines for expansion. Details on policy. The big thing I'm taking away from that is you asking the question, why did you recommend that one? If they start saying, because it's a $2,000 cashback, and the interest rate, blah, blah, blah. Again, probably not so much, but if they start saying, because of the way that you're structuring your plan and the policy of this lender, this allows us to do property number 1 into property number 2. But if we use this one, the policy is different, totally different feeling, and it's going to give you a totally different outcome. Is there anything else you wanted to wrap up on this one, mate?
If you're not a good broker, don't send me any hate emails. I guess.
Just have you tried being better?
Yeah, exactly. Don't at me.
Simon Liu from House Finder, thank you so much again for jumping on the show, mate.
Great to be on.